welcome to another Meet a Writer session with me. And I'm very, very excited this time as well because we have such an incredible human joining me today. And we are going to have a pretty interesting and inspiring story today. So, welcome, Lauren. Woo!
Hello. Yay.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's good to be
So,
here.
oh my God, so am I. So, okay, before we start and go into the deepest and most interesting questions, I wanted to know, can you tell us where you're joining us from?
Yeah, so I'm from Ohio in America. Um, really cold today. It's like snowing. It was beautiful yesterday. I don't know what happened, but
Oh my God, that is that is pretty sad because it makes me really sad when it's cold, and it's getting still cold here in Armenia as well. So there's some days when we have the sun, but there's others when it's really cold. So
yeah. Yep. It's so cold.
yeah. So, okay. So let's start from the very, very beginning. Can you tell us when did you start writing and why and what are you writing? You can start from the question that you want. So
Yeah.
go ahead. The floor is yours.
So when I was really little, probably like 3, I remember watching my parents read and not knowing how to read, but wanting to desperately tell them information by writing. So my very first book, I had this book of cat stickers, and I took all the cat stickers and I put one sticker on each page, and I like wrote, just like looped. I remember writing stories about each of the cats and presenting it to my dad, and then just being like, oh, he can't understand this? What? So I remember being so excited to learn how to read and write at like 3 because I knew you could get information to people. I just didn't know how. And then all throughout school, I was always writing. I mean, to the point where my teachers would like take my notebooks from me during class because they thought I wasn't paying attention, because I would just be writing stories, not notes, stories. So, and they would be stories about like what happened at lunch or what happened on the moon or anything. I mean, if I could write about it, I loved writing about it. When I got to college, I kind of stopped writing as much because my degree, I'm a teacher. So I had a lot of papers I had to write. And so, I mean, college, I think, is really when school got hard. And so I couldn't just like write for fun. But now that I'm an English teacher, I teach high school. So, like 14 to 18-year-olds. I teach them how to write, and so I can write with them, and I'm able to write a little bit more now. Was that your whole question?
I think so. I think
Okay.
so. And it's crazy because we didn't really talk much when we were kind of chatting on Instagram,
Yeah.
but and that's basically one of the best reasons so that you kind of get a few of the insights on the person, and then you want to leave the opportunity to meet them face to face, I would
Yeah.
say. This way,
Yeah.
because you couldn't meet otherwise, but I'm very, very happy about this as well.
Yeah.
So it's very inspiring how you started writing from that early on, because sometimes we don't really understand what we want to do, and I think that when we're kind of younger, that's when we have the biggest imagination of all, and then that's when we're not afraid of writing, we're not afraid of our ideas and of all of the opinions and feedback that we're getting, because we're pretty much, we want to write whatever we're interested in and whatever comes to mind, and we're not like, oh, is somebody's gonna like it, is this deep enough, is this
Yeah.
better than, I don't know, this or that. So
Yeah.
that's, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm it's fascinating to me,
Yeah.
really.
Well, and I mean, I think even middle school, so like 12-year-olds, I've taught them before as well, and they still don't have that fear, really. It's not like, oh, I can't write this on paper. It's not worthy of the paper. They still just want to like throw up everything that's in their brain. It really is once they get to high school, once I get them, that it's like, oh, I shouldn't write that, or I don't want to write that, or no one will want to read this. Like there's that social pressure that hits them in high school here. And it's sad to watch, but I try and get them out of it. I'm that's my goal, is to get them back into that like fun writing phase.
That's amazing. And I feel like we always feel the need of having those teachers in our lives in any shape or form, because having those people who are going to be like, no, go ahead and write, don't think about it, don't be afraid of it, because lots of the people also think that they're not creative, or their ideas are not as wise, or maybe they cannot express themselves through words. And I feel like everybody can do it, it's just that sometimes we're afraid to do it. So that's why I think we need teachers like you who push for improvement, and who'll push us towards writing even if we're afraid of doing so. Yeah.
Well, and I do find some people, especially students who have like dyslexia, if you've heard of that, like people who have actual issues with writing, I definitely like to find hacks for them. So now that everyone has a phone in their pocket, they can just voice record themselves and then type it out. That's really helpful. Google has some, functions like it'll read your writing to you and things like that that are definitely helpful. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think people can write. They just stop.
Absolutely.
They just
Yeah,
stop.
absolutely. And I think that, I don't know, it would be great again to have somebody like you, and in any like way, in any type of relationship, somebody like you who always supports and motivates people to do so. And I know that you as well are writing till this moment, right? So you're in the middle of writing your book.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about the book?
So I never really thought that I would write a book about cancer, but here we are. So my dad was diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago. And I just remember thinking, like, I want to write a book for people because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know how to react. I don't want to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. And so I was like, okay, I could write a book. I'm a good writer. I could help people. And then I never did it. Life got in the way. But then I was actually diagnosed with cancer in December. And so I've just been kind of like journaling and tracking what's been helpful and what I'm going through, with the hope that after all of the cancer stuff is done and I'm back and being normal, I will have a book that I can publish about my experience, the experience of being a daughter of someone with cancer. I've met a lot of people in the past few months who also have cancer, so kind of including some of their stories in it. I don't know if it's going to be a memoir, or I don't think it's going to just be like a how-to book, like how to help someone with cancer, but yeah, probably more like a memoir, uh, focused on like the experience of cancer. So it's definitely in the early stages, but yeah, that's kind of been keeping me busy.
You're first of all, before saying anything else, I think that you're incredibly courageous for doing that. And actually, like, being able to kind of think of it in another perspective. I'm sure it's been very, very hard for you, and it still might be very hard for you, but taking all of that and turning it into work, into something that even at that moment you started thinking about other people, about what to do and how to turn this experience into something helpful, I think is just another representation of how amazing you are.
Oh,
And
thank you.
yeah, absolutely. And having that courage to be able to do that and to be able to face it that way, I think is an incredible thing. And not everybody can do it. And I admire you so, so much for that. And when I remember how we kind of met and how you wrote to me that you're writing a book about that and whether I would love to interview you. And that was like an absolute yes, because I feel like stories like yours should be shared, and not only do they have to be shared, but they also have to be appreciated and admired. Because these days, sometimes I don't feel like sometimes stories like yours get that much appreciation and love and care and like everything that you deserve to get with stories like that. And that's why I decided to kind of activate this platform again, so that I can give people the opportunity to shine, because there's so many like talented and inspiring people that sometimes don't get to be in the spotlight. And Yeah, also just a huge thank you, I'm pretty sure, on behalf of lots of people for writing it and for doing this and for staying strong and for, yeah, actually for just overall, I think everything would fit under the expression of like thank you for doing it. And I just wanted to know, like, what do you want people to get from the book later on? Like, lots of things, I think, but what would you say are the most important takeaways?
Um, I definitely think that the friends of mine who are very close to me are going to get my experience because they're with me a lot, and yeah. But I think we hear about people like, oh, she has cancer, oh, that's so sad, and that's kind of like where it stops, because that's kind of a lot of people's comfort level. Like, oh, I don't know what to say, I don't want to say the wrong thing. And um I've even had people text me, months later after finding out that I have cancer, and they're like, oh, I didn't want to bug you. And I'm like, well, I needed someone. So maybe understanding, I think, is probably the best way to put that. But just an understanding of like what someone is going through, what someone may need, because it's not easy to just ask someone like, "Hey, you've got cancer. What can I do for you?" Like, that's hard. A lot of people aren't gonna ask that. Um, yeah, and I don't know how it is in Armenia or wherever anyone is from, but in America in October, everything is pink. Everything is about breast cancer. And then, you go, today is this cancer day and today's this cancer day, but I don't ever really feel like we share things that are actually useful during that time. It's just kind of like, I support people. And,
Yeah.
I do think it is important for people to take their health and take it seriously. And so, if someone during October thinks, oh, I need to schedule myself for that annual exam, that's great. But I think we can definitely go beyond that. So hopefully this would start a conversation for people, or, you know, yeah, increase awareness and understanding, empathy, I guess, too. Um, I'm a firm believer, if you can be empathetic and put yourself in somebody else's shoes. I think that's why a lot of us read and a lot of us write, anyways, because escapism. So, maybe putting yourself in someone's real shoes would be helpful for somebody.
Absolutely, and I feel like it's really, really important the fact that you're raising awareness on this issue, and also not kind of also like shying away from writing about your experience, because I feel um like lots of the people, just like you said, whenever somebody, let's say, has cancer or any kind of other, like, I don't know, like difficulty in their life, it's really hard to tackle. And I felt like whenever you shared your experience, I've also realized that I relate to that in a way, because whenever you lose even somebody in your life, people don't really know what to say to you. And it's the same for you as well. You're like, okay, so what am I going to say? Like, it's going to be all right, because like you can't take responsibility for that when you're saying it, like, oh yeah, how are you doing and stuff like that. A lot of the things, a lot of the expressions feel useless and meaningless at that moment. And I feel like if somebody is kind of in that situation and they share their experience, and then they kind of also give you some guidelines into their emotional state, so that you realize, like, okay, so they're feeling this way, and maybe I can suggest this, maybe I can try to help them with this or that. It gives a lot of people insight and actual, like, hands-on help, instead of just, like, abstract theoretical information that you also read on internet, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. And it's overwhelming to feel like I would be responsible for someone's entire understanding of a concept. So I would hate for someone to see this and be like, "Oh, great, I'll get that book and I'll know everything." But yeah, I think that's why I want to do it like a memoir. So it's just like my stories and my experiences, but someone can read it and understand from
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, 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 not responsible, but also, like, when you get somebody's example, it's really helpful. And also, I haven't shared this online yet, but just for the sake of saying that we are kind of in the same shoes, I would say, in that context, is that I'm also writing a book on how to, I wouldn't say like how to deal, but what do you feel when you lose somebody
Mhm.
close, very, very close in your life? And again, I wouldn't want that to be like a guideline book. I wouldn't want it to be like a memoir as it is, but just I wanted to share my own experience and the feelings that I've gone through when
Mhm.
I when it happened to me. So it kind of, I think, overlaps in a way, in its way that you're kind of giving your own perspective on what you've gone through, but at
Yeah.
the same time can't take responsibility and say that everybody feels that way when they're in that situation. And I really agree with you on the empathy part, because I'm a strong believer that empathy is one of the best qualities that a person can have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I would say that it's irreplaceable. And I don't know, I love it a lot, and I love when people have it.
Yes. It's beautiful. Yeah.
It is beautiful. And one of the things that I also wanted to ask is, what are the challenges of writing this book?
Um, so right now I have to be off work because I have a compromised immune system. I can't be around my students. So not having real life experience, I mean, like I literally live at my house and I don't leave except for my treatments. So
Mm.
not having like a real life experience to write about has been hard. I'm trying to write every day about something, but I don't really experience something every day. Um, but at the same time, I think it's been a lot easier to write because I don't have anything else going on. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to kind of like remember things from like when my dad went through treatment that I, will like reminisce on and things like that. So that's been that's been difficult, just not having something to write about every day.
Yeah. But also I feel like, again, that part as well again gives us an understanding of what it feels like, because sometimes uh with lots of like other people, whenever something happens, and then they kind of come and they are in your shoes for a moment, but then they go ahead and live their own life, but then you stay in that situation. So it kind of gives you again another perspective of what it is like. Yeah, it might be that way, that some days you don't have anything to write about because you're actually not living and experiencing life the way you were doing before.
Yeah.
And yeah, that I feel like that again adds up to the realness of the situation, and also that you're not like inventing things just for the sake of keeping interest, but also you're just writing whatever is actually happening. And what are the motivations for writing it? And sometimes I feel like this is just overall about writing, because as much as I love writing, there are some days when I just, for some reason, I don't feel like doing it. And for
Yeah.
some reason, I just think of giving up and stuff. So, what
Yeah.
are the key motivators for you?
Well, especially when you're writing about something so personal and devastating as loss or cancer or, an experience of a bad time. Um, I'm writing so that someone doesn't feel how I felt. I remember when my dad was first diagnosed, I just felt so alone. I'm 33. I don't have any friends who've lost parents. So, I mean, my dad passed away a year. Yeah. My dad passed away a year and a half after his diagnosis, but people were dying from COVID when he was diagnosed. So I wasn't truly alone, but I definitely felt alone. So my motivation is so that someone else doesn't feel like that. And then I need something to do that's productive and to feel like I'm helping people. Um, being a teacher, my whole job is helping people, and I don't get to do that right now. So I kind of see the writing as like my way of helping in the world when I'm not really able to do a whole lot else. So
That's that's amazing. When somebody says that their like main motivation is to help people, it's just that, it's like, anyway, I cannot even find the words to express how I feel about that, because it's very, very touching and very heartwarming. And that's just the one of the most, I would say, I don't know, just respectful things that you can do towards everybody and just for the people. And I feel like that's, I don't know, just extremely impressive. Let me just put it that way. Let me put it that way. And I feel like a lot of the interviews that I'm doing is just that one thing in common that people have is the fact that they don't want others to feel alone. And that's also what I usually say is one of the reasons why I write, because sometimes when feeling something, you always feel like you're alone in that and you're experiencing it alone. And it's not about just like having a bad day, even if it is a bad day, but lots of other like complex emotional situations when you're in, and you always feel like you're alone. And then when read about it and then you post about it, or when you share that with somebody else, there's always somebody who kind of says that they feel that way. And that's one of the best things I feel like about writing, because you can instantly bond with somebody over thoughts or emotions.
Yeah. And I don't know how many times I've looked on Instagram and one of your quotes that you posted is just perfect. Like it is exactly what I am thinking and feeling and going through, or I don't even know how to put it into words sometimes. And you did. And I love that. So thank you for always sharing, because it's like a little thing I look forward to every day, literally.
Come on, thank you. And you're kind of making me tear up right now, because it's one of the, to be honest, it's one of the best things for me to hear, because that's one of the, again, most fascinating things that happens in life, when people who have different journeys and different backgrounds, and even sometimes, I don't know, couldn't cross paths in any other way, just meet over one simple like emotional state or one simple situation. And that's the biggest motivation for me to continue writing, is because a lot of the people write to me, and let's say I relate to you, and then they start sharing with me their stories. And then even in situations like this, I get to interview people and then talk about their writings and talk about what motivates them and what makes them want to write and continue writing. And I don't know, that's the thing that keeps me going, I would say, both the
Yeah.
feedback and yeah, people like you.
Thank you. Oh, you're wonderful.
Oh, sorry you. And I would even say, like, let's say you could give people who are afraid of writing, or I don't know, just think of giving up or thinking that they're not good enough to write, what tips and tricks or what piece of advice would you give them?
Hmm. Um, I think everyone has something to share. Everyone has something to say. Everyone has something that they've gone through that maybe isn't the most unique thing ever, but you have your own perspective of it. That's the cool thing about language. I mean, we have 26 letters in English at least, and you can put them together in infinite ways, and it means something so different. I can't tell you how many times I've looked back on old writing that I thought at the time was just awful, like so bad. And I look at it and I'm like, yeah, I mean, there's stuff here that I would cut, but there's some really good, just little lines and little pieces and little things that now, older me is looking at and saying like, oh, I could write a whole thing about that. And I only had a word about it before. So, I think it's really hard to start when you have nothing, and you're just staring at a blank page. So a lot of times what I do with my students is we set a timer for, if it's the start of the year, it's 30 seconds or a minute. If it's the end of the year, it's 3 minutes, 5, 10 minutes, but just dump everything out on the page and then go back through with a highlighter or something and find those lines or those words that you really like or whatever. And that might inspire you to have a whole new piece, because everything you write is not going to be great. I mean, let's be honest. But, you know, I think if you don't write, you can't start at all. It's, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll go with that.
That's very true. And I agree with the fact that everybody has something to say and everybody has a story to tell. And one of the things that I also agree about the fact that you've said is that a lot of the things that I was looking back to, I was like, oh my God, what is this? Like, I don't like it, and everything like that. But another perspective was that I also, once I started thinking that if I wrote something like that in that moment, it means that it meant something to me and I wanted to say that. And I don't know, I felt that way. And how wrong and kind of unfair would it be towards myself to kind of think of it like it doesn't matter, or it's not important, or it's not pretty. I was like, okay, so let's just look at it from another perspective. Maybe I could write it in a more beautiful way. Maybe it could be more poetic, or I don't know, maybe it could be more grammatically correct or sophisticated in terms of its vocabulary. But at the same time, like if I thought that it was important enough to put it down, so I guess it did mean something after all. So I guess it should have been
Yeah.
there to begin with.
Yeah. And if you're able to look back at it and know that it's not good, what would you do better? Rewrite it. That's a great opportunity for writing. So again, you can't have that perspective, you can't have that growth if you don't start somewhere. And starting somewhere doesn't mean it has to be pretty. I mean, you can write on a note piece of paper. You can write on like I wrote on the back of receipts a lot in college when I wanted, when I had a moment. It doesn't have to be beautiful. You don't have to share it with anyone. Yeah.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
very true. And that's absolutely true, that even if you like want to write it, I even have things that I write but know that I'm not going to share, at least for a while. Maybe I will share whenever I'm ready, but I have things when I'm like, okay, so imagine nobody's gonna ever read this, and nobody's gonna listen to this, and nobody's gonna know. Imagine, like, what would you write at this moment? And then I do it, and then I feel like that's the most genuine conversation that I can have with
Yeah.
myself, even, like, especially. And when can we expect your book? Do you have any like raw
Well,
depth?
part of it's hard because I don't want to finish writing it before I finish treatment. So, and I have breast cancer. So I have 14 more weeks of treatment, then I have surgery, and then I have like 5 more years of treatment after that. So it's not coming for a little while. But yeah, I would say maybe like in 5 years, I think it would be like ready to be published, ready to go. Yeah.
We're gonna look to that, and we're gonna keep waiting and waiting for you to kind of drop some hints, some spoilers, or anything that you feel comfortable doing.
Yeah.
But I can't wait to read and kind of take your journey for a little bit. And I feel like it's one of the most beautiful and interesting things that you can do, both as a reader, and I also consider sometimes books, like movies as well, that give you the same experience. Sometimes when you fall into a period or fall into somebody's life for a few hours, so it's the same experience with books, and I can't wait to read it. And if you don't mind sharing like an account or something like that, if you feel that you want me to share that, you can let me know, and I'll share it in the comment section of, like, in the description of this video.
Yeah.
And people will, I don't know, get in touch with you, or if they have questions, or if they want to know more about your book or something else, and or about the deadline or about
Yeah.
the publishing date. Yeah. And if you have like last words for now, and then I think that we can try to and keep this conversation going. Absolutely.
I just want to encourage anybody who is out there and wants to be a writer or thinks they're not a writer or whatever you are. If you can put a pen in your hand, or if you can move your fingers on a keyboard, or just speak, you are a writer. And what you say, the world needs to hear. So that's
that is That is awesome. Thank you for that. And again, I absolutely agree with each and every single word. I've had a professor, so I was taking like a certificate program. It was in editing and publishing. One of my professors was like, I was like, oh yeah, I want to become a writer, and he was like, are you a writer? I'm like, nah, I don't think I am a writer. He's like, oh yeah, you are. Because that's
Yep.
such a writer thing to do, like imposter syndrome every single time. You're a writer. No, I'm not a writer.
No.
I'm just, da, 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 whatever it is. So that's why I I would say, like, throw out that word very easily, because I feel like if somebody writes whatever they feel and whatever they have in their minds, they are a writer no matter what. It's another way of, like, kind of, okay, let's separate, like, me and Shakespeare and, I don't know, and Neil Gaiman or whoever it is. Yeah, there are absolutely, like, differences and stuff, but in levels or maybe in types and everything like that. But at the same time, I feel like we can still be in the same category and enjoy.
Well, and we
enjoy.
all have the same letters.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
You're right.
At
I'm gonna
least
quote
in
you.
English. Yeah, do. I love it. I always tell it to my students. You have 26 options, just put one of them down.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
you're so right. I'm gonna quote you all the time. And thank you so much for coming to this interview, for agreeing to do this, and for sharing your experience and all the tips and tricks, and for sharing your beautiful story, because I feel like it's going to inspire so many people in so many ways. And I was absolutely touched by the opportunity to interview you and by the opportunity to listen to this beautiful story, and kind of despite a lot of the things that you've said, and despite the fact that there are hardships and everything, I've had a smile throughout the whole interview on my face, because you're such a beautiful human, and I would love for everybody to get the opportunity to kind of meet you through this video, just like I did. And thank you for doing that. And I hope you continue this journey, and you continue being a strong, incredibly motivating person as you are already. And I'm gonna start this, and a lot of the people are gonna do this as well. I am sending you lots of virtual hugs. I'm not sure if you're receiving them, but I'm sending you those, and I hope you get them and you get more, like, of the strength and of the motivation and whatever you need to get from those hugs to continue everything that you're doing at the moment.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And I hope you guys loved this video as much as I did. And we'll see you in another interview.